without further ado, I will formally kick off the next installment of our awesome Women of Burlington speaker series. And we have so many awesome women in our community that will be doing this to infinity and beyond, really. So I get to be the host today for these shows. Mayor Marianne Meed Ward, welcome to all of you out there who are joining us on your lunch hour. We really do appreciate your participation. And if you have continued ideas for people you'd like to see on a speaker series, please do let us know. Reach out to my office at mayor@burlington.ca. We are always open to receiving them. We do have the series booked to the end of the year. We just have that many incredible, amazing women that we want to hear from, a lot of different topics that we want to get into. But 2020 is wide open. So please send topics, send names, and we're going to just keep this going because I know I've found it really inspirational. So thank you for being here. This month's topic is pandemic parenting. And we have three incredible parents here. And without further ado, I am going to introduce them. We're going to talk about what it's like to be a parent, what you've learned through the pandemic, what it's like to be a parent during COVID, how you all look so awesome, because I know it's been stressful. So everyone's looking rested and refreshed, and it's been a breeze, right? It hasn't been a breeze. I know that. So we are going to talk about that. And as I was telling our panelists before we got started, it's not uncommon for tears to be shed during this. And that's totally fine because we're going to get real. We're going to talk about, this isn't about everybody having their act together. We all do in some ways, and we all struggle as well. So we really want this to be truthful and real to your experience, and also leave you with some hopeful takeaways. So those are our caveats. So before we do get started, I want to, before I introduce our panelists more formally, I do want to read a land acknowledgement. Burlington, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of the First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Haudenosaunee and the Métis, our lands spanning from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment are steeped in Indigenous history. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is part of the treaty lands and territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit. And I do want to pause just a moment to acknowledge the events of the last few days. In response to the news that a mass grave of 215 children was found in Kamloops at the site of a former residential school in BC, we at the city have lowered the flags at City Hall, as has Burlington Fire Department, and they will stay down for 1 hour for every child. That's 215 hours or 9 days. We have also paused all ceremonial flag raisings during that 9-day period. So the flags that we intended to put up for June are on the poles, but we will not do the ceremonial flag raising until we are outside of this 9-day period of mourning. So I want to now introduce our three awesome women. First, we have Julie Cole. Wave Julie, who is a mom of 6, a renowned public speaker and parenting blogger, and of course the co-founder of Mabel's Labels, and I know many of you are avid customers out there. Parents who are listening in are probably very familiar with that product as a way to keep track of what goes where and make sure it comes back once it's out there with the name tag on it. We also have Dania Thurman. Wave Dania, so they know who you are. A longtime Burlington resident who is a client development specialist with Mini Giants, and she's going to tell us what that is about, and serves on the board of directors for Compassion Society, which is, of course, has been very busy throughout this pandemic, reaching out to members of our community. Dania is also a professional singer, sang at my inauguration. She's amazing, sang during the first part of this pandemic on her balcony, and gave so many of us such great joy, and is also the mom of 2 teenagers. And our third panelist is Jessica Clark Barrow. Thanks for being here, Jessica. Jessica is an executive vice president at Waratah Capital Advisors, former Toronto chair of 100 Women in Finance, and co-chaired the first ever True Patriot Love Women's Expedition to Baffin Island, raising over $1 million for Canadian veterans and their families. What an incredible, incredible achievement. She has 2 kids, age 17 and 19, and moved to Burlington in 1998. And I too am I'm a parent, as many of you will know. We moved here in Burlington in 2000 when I was pregnant with twins and had a 2-year-old. It was kind of like having triplets. My kids are all in their 20s now, so we survived those days. It's been a little bit different experience for us. So where appropriate, I'll pepper in some of my experiences as part of the panel as well. So I really do appreciate all of you taking time to be with us today and to talk about this. So the first question that I'll ask each of you to cover, and I'll go to you, Dania, first, then Jessica, then Julie, because that's how I see you on my screen, and we'll just keep changing up the order every so often. How has your day-to-day schedule in COVID change? So what was the pre-COVID schedule like? What's the post-COVID schedule? So over to you, Dania.
Thank you so much. And just thank you too for the lowering of the flags for the 9 days. I was really, really happy to see you do that. Thank you. My whole life's changed dramatically. This will be my tearjerker one. I was working and gigging as a singer prior to COVID. I think I did my last gig the week before we shut down, and I flew to Green Bay. Green Bay took 4 airplanes, was at 2 airports, and it was a week before the shutdown. It was a very weird time to fly, but that was the last gig, of course, that I've done because the music industry just really does not exist anymore for live music anyway. And I was working in student nutrition. I was managing 75 programs in 50 schools. I was working from home already. And like a lot of other people, I lost my job due to COVID and downsizing. And man, that was stressful because I'm a single mom. And my ex is a musician, so was already out of work. So I was the only one of us with a full-time income. So that was personally and professionally super hard. I recognize that I'm very lucky in that I was able to, within a few months, find another job, which, you know, grateful for. It's with a fantastic company, and I'm working with somebody who I've done a lot of committee work with and who was also one of my volunteers. And we have a lot of fun. There's a lot of different areas of the company. What I'm doing is sort of a client development and specialist role, but we do essential manufacturing as part of it, so we are open. So I've actually been working in person, so I'm sort of the opposite of a lot of people where I was working at home before, now in person. However, I'm lucky that I have the flexibility to be home with my kids when they're home from school a couple days a week, so I go a little bit back and forth. And I also went back to university a year ago at 46 years old, which was a crazy thing to do. So, I mean, I can tell you, like, I don't know much that's the same other than being a mom.
That's awesome. And I know the person that Dania works with, and our joke is that they probably sit and talk all day and Does any actual work get done? I'm just teasing you. He'll know if he's watching. Jessica, over to you. What has changed in your life and parenting pre and post COVID?
Yeah, so I've been a GO train commuter for 20 years. So working on Bay Street downtown, I joined the other sort of 9,000 people from Burlington that take the GO train every day downtown, plus all the people that drive, I'm sure. So for a lot of us, our commutes are much shorter. So my commute is now 10 seconds. So that's certainly different, but like a lot of people, you know, you've been in this state of what I like to think of as suspended animation, where you're really not sure what's going to happen next. And a lot of things have been put on hold and on pause, whether that's at work, onboarding new employees, you know, we just sort of hiring freeze, right? Whether that's the kids, you know, are they going back to school? They're not going back to school. My 19-year-old son was off to university this year. So what type of, was he going into residence or not into residence? Was he at home? Was he there? You know, so a lot of, sort of like hurry up and wait, you know, where things just didn't happen, and it just keeps getting extended and extended. So I think for me, it's been trying to build in new routines. So that routine I had of taking the train was sort of like, as a mom, my mental downtime, where I, you know, would read. That was my chance to read a book. That was my chance to do my lists of what I had to accomplish, to chat with friends. So certainly, you know, you kind of lose that when your commute is 10 seconds. So you just jump right into work, and then you jump right into home time. So for me, I've tried to build in some new routines, a morning walk, listening to a podcast, you know, breakfast with the kids and my husband, which is a real treat. And certainly a lot more time with my dog.
Yes, our dog Boston is loving every minute of this because we're all home all the time. I don't know what he's going to do. He's in fact sleeping right behind me. You can't see him, but he's back there. Let's just hope we don't get a mail delivery because it's all hell will break loose. Julie, over to you. What's changed pre and post COVID with parenting, with your life?
For sure. I have to laugh at the dog thing though, because we've got Ozzy, and honestly, we're like, what's he going to do when nobody's around to say, oh, big stretch, when he stretches every time. So yes, Marianne, I have 6 kids. So the house is a bit of a gong show, but I will say, unlike you, Marianne, I had my babies one at a time.
That's a little easier.
Although I will say I ended up with 6 C-sections. So I want to give a big shout out to our chief of obstetrics, Christine DeYoung, who was brave enough to rip out my last few. So what's changed? Okay, so it's funny, like a lot of people often ask me, like, what does a day in the life look like? And there really, pre-COVID, was no answer to that. I'm, you know, sometimes at the office, I'm often traveling or speaking at a conference or getting 6 kids to hockey arenas, that sort of thing. The only thing that seemed really consistent was my lack of sleep and me time. But now, you know, I feel like things are less hectic. You know, I'm not traveling at all. I'm not taxiing kids to music and dance and sports and that sort of thing. My days are still really super diverse, but they're mostly done at home. And I'm surrounded by an army of pint-sized dictators that I made my very self. So I think this is why, and especially like, you know, or not especially, but moms who are at home and working moms, our days are looking super different. And that's why this topic is just really relevant today.
That's great. The joke around our house is that my family sees me more and talks to me less. That is the irony. So I'm on Zoom calls. I think my record still stands at 13 in one day. So they'll see me across the room. They'll text me, when are you going to be off? Right? So they'll text me from across the room, because if you're involved in a meeting, even though you're physically at home, you're not present, you're not available to your family. And that has, for us, that has been a real challenge, trying to carve out. I mean, we used to have to book meetings together to see each other before the pandemic hit, but it's really hard to even find the time. I say managing a pandemic is like a full-time job all on its own, in addition to the already full-time job of being mayor. So So trying to find time, build in time with your family is always a challenge at the best of times for me, for sure. But this has just been, this is whole next level challenge. So with that segue, I do want to get some advice from folks around the table. And I'll start with you, Jessica. What can we do to help other parents and create a support system throughout the pandemic, especially when we can't physically get together? Everything is still, for the foreseeable future, going to be a virtual world. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, one thing to keep in mind, is everyone's dealing with something that you know nothing about. And I think, connecting with others, we talked about this a little bit as a group, but like social media is certainly great, but it's a double-edged sword. Because you're really connecting with the outward version of what people want to project. So I think it's important to create spaces for, authentic connection, like one-on-one conversations with your friends and your family and your team at work. And I think you need to create like space and time, to allow those conversations to happen, because it's really been hard. It's been disruptive. And I think it's okay to not be okay and to talk about that openly. And people want to help. Like the number of, GoFundMes and meal trains and things that I've seen and been a part of or organized for my family or friends. I think that those things really help. But I think, you just got to be kind with yourself and patient with yourself. The bright side of it all is that we're all building resilience, and they talk about, by going through difficult periods in your life, if you can find your support networks and you can find your communities, that builds skills for later on. It's hard to sort of see that and appreciate it now. But I'm a glass half full person. So I'm very always optimistic, looking for the bright spots, but it's hard. And I think you just have to realize that everyone's going through a really tough time, and to help others, I think it's just about connecting with each other.
So important, that reminder for kindness to each other and also to ourselves. Right.
Sure.
It is really, it's really tough, that self-care, taking time for yourself. I was just talking about this on a podcast earlier today, that I really don't do well with self-care. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, about handling that work-life balance. But the joke, another joke in my household is I downloaded the yoga app at Christmas and I still haven't used it yet. That's how bad I am. So, but I'm kind about it. So with myself, Julie, I want to come to you now around the same question. It's just creating, how do parents create a support system for each other, especially in these virtual days?
For sure. And I think, I've been in this parenting space a long time, like through work and through all my humans. And I think Jessica brings up a great point. Like, just don't be a judgy McJudgerson, like we don't need that right now. None of us are living our optimal lives right now. We're not all parenting perfectly. We're not doing anything perfectly right now. And that's okay. We don't need judgment on that. I also like the idea of supporting when you see somebody struggling. Yeah. I had a friend who had triplets recently. I set up a meal tray and she said that was the best thing that could ever happen, better than any matching onesies I could have given them, but that is like real practical help. And maybe get a cleaner or send a nice message. Like, messages mean everything. Or organize like a Zoom wine night. When I had my 50th recently, my friends organized a Kahoot party for me, and it was all questions about me, and it was so cute, and so it made me feel so good. So just kind of acknowledging people. And I talked about this at the Wonder Woman conference last year with the Burlington Chamber, about remembering that comparison is the thief of joy. We need to remind our friends that, yeah, social media is great, but you're seeing the highlight reel, and the perfect kids and the perfect jobs and the perfect families exist in Facebook status updates and movies. So please, if you find yourself, doing that comparison thing, maybe take a little bit of a social media diet, take a little bit of a break from it, and be transparent yourself there in that space. Be real. A lot of I just try to be really mindful of who's reading those messages. So, you know, what Dania said, why is my light doing that? What Dania said, you know, she recently lost her job through the pandemic. Many people did. Many families are struggling. So maybe don't be that guy on social media who flexes about your new cottage or your fancy new car. Like, just be mindful of how that stuff is going to land on other people, and just, yeah, don't be that guy.
I love that. I wrote it down. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? How much, you know, success and well-being is not a pie. More for you doesn't mean less for me, right? It's, and I've heard that about competition, about success in our work, success at parenting. When we're all succeeding, it just means more for everybody, not less. It's a very good statement. Dania, over to you about creating support systems for yourself and others.
I echo everything that has been said already, and you know, recognizing that we're all in the same stressful situation here, and having patience, being easy on each other. I can speak to a few. Often there are things available. If you've got school-age kids, there might be some opportunities to connect with other parents through this that you might miss out on. I'm a school council chair, and I know sometimes we get the bad rep that, you know, we don't like other people to come, or we're some snooty group. But I mean, it can be really helpful to just join in on some of those meetings. And I know we're ending the year now, so there aren't that many left. I actually have one tonight. But even just to come in and hear some of the questions other parents are asking, or just to listen to the principal report, like, my gosh, the patience and the back and forth we've had to deal with as parents of school-age kids right now, home and in school, in person, at home, and back and forth, and nobody knows what we're doing. I don't know what my kids are doing next week, right? Like, it's sometimes it's helpful to join something like that and just hear what's actually happening, and it brings you a little closer to other parents. And about the babies too, I suffered with postpartum with my first, and so if you know somebody who's just had a baby in the last year, like, reach out, ask them how they're doing. That can be a serious thing. People don't want to admit that they're feeling things like that because it's a guilt, right? You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be thrilled. And if you're feeling feelings of depression, like, you might not want to speak that. And if you're really isolated, like when I first moved to Burlington, I was pregnant and I didn't know anybody. And I was home 6 or 7 days out of the week by myself with this baby. And no one was around to recognize that. And it was 2 years before I was diagnosed, right? Which was hard. So if you know somebody, a coworker, a neighbor, whatever, yeah, say hi. Like Julie said, go bring them something like a dinner or something, right? Just ask how they're doing. That's really important. It can be very isolating having little ones. And I want to speak to, as I said, I'm very lucky that I can be flexible in my work. If you're an employer, managers, and you have, you know, at staff who are parents, ask how they're doing. Ask how things are going at home, you know. It's really meaningful, and it shows that you care and you empathize with where we are. And I think that your employee retention and your productivity will go way up if you are, you know, just recognizing that it's a struggle having kids at home instead of in school, and being and trying to work and all those things. Like, it's very meaningful to have employers really seem to care about how things are going. And one more thing, as I said, unprecedented situation. And I know I have 2 teenagers, and as parents, we want them to be independent and advocate for themselves. But I've said this a few times, that this is a situation that's all new for us too, and we don't even know how to advocate our way through it. So we can't expect our kids and our teenagers to. So give yourself a break. It doesn't make you a helicopter mom. Don't judge yourself. It's okay to reach out to your kids' teachers and ask how they're doing. It's okay to ask for help and ask for advice. Like, it's all right. You're not hovering. It's they need you right now.
So well said. And to paraphrase Julie Cole, let's not have Judgy McJudgeboat out there. Let's not. There's too little kindness and too much judgment. And I do like the messages from both of you around just reaching out with some kindness and a kind word. And I can tell you, in our office, we actually in the last 2 days got 2 random messages from people in the community saying, look, I know it's hard. You guys are doing a great job. Chin up, out of nowhere, apropos of nothing, just to say, keep going. And honestly, that's fuel for us for weeks, because you get the other far more often, actually, and it can drag you down and you have to take a break. So I actually, one of my little tricks that I've been doing since I started in media, because I've always been in a form of a fishbowl. My career just led me that way. And people tell you whether they hate you more often than they tell you that you're doing a good job. And so I learned early on, and I still do it, to create a little folder for all those nice messages. And it's like my fuel. It's like my fuel pump. So I go back to the source and read those when it's a really tough day and all you're hearing is negative. And then you're doubting yourself, right? That's the hardest part. Is we're really, especially as women, I find, and my personal temperament is really to take 200% of the responsibility for everything, and feel bad. If you didn't land that thing perfectly that you couldn't possibly have known about and had no experience with. It's a pandemic. It's never happened before. How can anyone be expected to do this, every single thing right the whole time? And yet that's the expectation that we all put it, we're all achievers, right? We all are drivers. And so just being able to step back from that and then see yourself through other people's eyes. So I would encourage everyone on the call today, take a moment, send a kind word to somebody in your universe, whoever it is. Just take a minute. You don't know how much that means. And I know that will come back to you as well. All right, let's move to our next. I'm going to skip over one. I do want to talk about silver linings because we're kind of on an optimistic sort of flavor right here. So what is the silver lining or the bright spot that you've found with your kids? Like, what have they learned? What do you think that they will take out of this that is something that has made them stronger or better, or a silver lining? And you can answer that question any which way, but just around what has made us better that we wouldn't have had we not gone through this? And I'll start with you, Julie. Go ahead.
Just unmute myself. Look, there have been some silver linings, and I'm always careful not to be like that toxically positive person, because we have all gone through a lot of crap too. But I do try to look at what benefits, and it has been, slowing down has brought some benefits to our family. We're doing a lot more, out on the court. They're playing Foursquare. Even teenagers, they're playing numbers. They're playing hopscotch. And you know what? It's funny. Like when the first lockdown happened, I had a couple kids at university who got sent home. Everybody was like online learning, whatever, and it was a full house. But I really did feel like that was our time to shine. I was like, finally, the 6-kid thing is paying off because it's so social all the time. My kids are sitting around the table while playing Dungeons and Dragons, getting a euchre game, playing Marco Polo in the pool. So I was like, yeah, this is what we've been training for. So a lot of that stuff has been good, seeing the kids really rely on each other socially and really develop those friendships and the memory creating that has happened. Like watching siblings, I know, you all have, like, watching sibling relationships is one of the big joys I get out of my parenthood. And, often a kid would be like, Mom, do you want to play this? I'm like, no, go find a brother. It's why I had him. So, it's so nice watching them do this. I also loved to see the teamwork. So I've got one little guy who's got a very funny learning profile. Like, he's ADD, ADHD, LD, gifted, like all of it. And it's all a whole bunch of weirdness. But what that meant in the first lockdown was that he was that kid who needed somebody beside him the whole time. the whole time. Who's got time to sit beside one child for the whole day? And I know a lot of parents are really struggling with that. And, you know, when you have the older independent kids, you're just like so thankful. So what I did then was I assigned each of the older siblings to with one subject. So, you know, Posey was in charge of math and Sass was in charge of whatever. And so they were all responsible and they rallied around him because I certainly couldn't do it. I had labels to make and that sort of thing. And I think we also, like, a big thing I learned through this, and I'm going to take it forward from a family and a personal perspective, is like understanding my capacity. Like, and I guess I've never really been that ashamed of admitting when I can't do stuff, but like, I just really vocalized to the teachers, like, look, with this little funny learner, like, we'll do the math, we'll do the spelling, but if you think that he's going to do a virtual tour of the San Diego Zoo and write about an animal, that ain't happening. And the teachers got it, you know? So it's just, I learned really to communicate better and to admit what I'm able and not able to do and to just own it.
Good advice. Jessica, I'm going to come to you next and then Dania. Silver lining for you and your kids.
Yeah, I think Julie did a great job of summarizing so many things there. And I think another one obviously is just the appreciation for your health. You know, you see people that are getting sick and they're in hospital, and so just certainly appreciating that, appreciating living in Burlington. You know, so many parks, such a beautiful city. You know, we're access to some great resources. So, and you see, you know, people leaving the cities to come to communities like ours. So just feeling very thankful that we're here. Yeah, and I think it's just, you know, the what did I write down in my notes? You know, allowing you time to think about, to Julie's point, like cultivating more of what you want. So what are you going to change after this pandemic? Like, what are you going to say goodbye to, whether it's the driving around to soccer, or, you know, every night of the week, whether it's the more family dinners, you know, more, you know, times that it's just informal, right? Sitting around having breakfast and dinner together as a family, things that you don't want to get rid of. So I think it's allowed us all to take a collective pause and maybe reframe some of the things that you're going to do differently. And I think the world is going to change. It is going to be very different. We're not going to go back to the way it was. Employers are going to be more flexible. You know, certainly in my work, I work at a startup now, but I worked at a bank for 13 years. And I know, you know, banking, law firms, you know, big corporations are all saying, you know what, we're going to move to this more hybrid workplace. And so I think, and you look at all the e-commerce trends that have happened. Like I have, you know, I talked to my doctor on Zoom now. I talked to my banker the other day on Zoom when I was setting up a bank account for my son. So there are things that, like, the pace of the world is changing, and there's going to be new opportunities for entrepreneurs, which is exciting, new businesses that we didn't have before. So I think there's a lot of hopefulness and a lot of change that I think is going to happen post-pandemic for sure.
Absolutely. Dania, over to you.
So first, I want to apologize. My daughter's right beside me. She's making lunch. So if you're hearing any banging, she's trying her best to be quiet. You know, that's what happens when you're at home. And I think that's one of the positive things that has come out of this is we're all a lot more understanding of that kind of thing. You know, the kid running across the room in the background and all those kinds of situations that, you know, might not have been looked upon as professional or whatever before. Definitely the being forced to slow down and just not rush everywhere. I think one of the things for me, like I used to go to the gym 3 nights a week, and now I walk every night about 6 kilometers. And I don't know that I'll go back to doing the gym. I've been working out in the morning instead, and I'm liking the walking. And I do the mean mom thing, and I make the kids walk with me when they're here, and I have to drag them out kicking and screaming, basically. But once we get out there, we have great conversations, and it's a really like nice time. And I recognize that teenagers are not supposed to spend this much time with their parents. Like it's not healthy, but you know what? It's been kind of nice that we've had that time, and you get to do those things that I think you wouldn't be doing if you were rushing around, like going, like you said, Julie, like music or theater or parkour or whatever it is you're driving to, or going to the gym, and being able to spend that time. My daughter is 13 and she's gotten into 80s movies and all the old TV shows. So we've watched like, you know, Weekend at Bernie's and Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Goonies and Pretty in Pink and all the things. And she just thinks that my music and when I grew up and the movies that I watched are like the best things ever. And it's been really cool to like take that time and do that, because when would you ever have had time before, right? That's the thing. So it's that time, and I hope that we can keep some of that. But for sure, I'm grateful for the slowing down.
And you know what? Like, I think, Dania, you make a really good point about that whole, like, you know, maybe we're accepting and we're all going to be a little bit more human going forward. Like I remember my friend, remember when we had the first lockdown, Lisa, you'll remember this, when we couldn't go to our hair salons and we still can't. And we are all like, our roots are showing. Well, my friend Ron said, our roots are showing not just here, but everywhere. The dog's barking in the background. The kid that comes hops on your lap during a Zoom call. You're breastfeeding while you're Skyping. So, you know, our roots are showing, and maybe that's okay. And maybe that's a good lesson for us to bring forward.
So well said. Absolutely. And, you know, I was thinking about it in my world, I did so much virtual, but by email. And ironically, I hardly ever do business on email anymore. I used to conduct entire meetings. I know you all will know what that is, right? You're back and forth 18 times trying to problem solve on a meeting, and things get chippier and more frustrated as with the number of emails back and forth. And this is why I have 13 Zoom calls in a day, but it's all FaceTime. It's virtual FaceTime, but the difference is I won't go back to what I did before, trying to communicate and problem solve and have meetings with people via email. The only time I use email is to set up the meeting. And so what that means is that I'm actually developing relationships, much deeper relationships with people that I work with constituents. Same policy there. If it's important enough to deal with it, then it's important enough to, you know, to have some face-to-face dialogue and see each other as human beings, not as that title at the end of an email chain, right? Because that's what, you know, that lack of ability to humanize a struggle, I think, is what adds conflict to a situation where we're trying to take the conflict out and just find the solutions. And I love that our roots are showing. So yes, they are. I want to pause for a minute. I do have some other questions to ask our panelists, but I do want to give our guests joining an opportunity to ask a question or make a comment. So I know that I've just kind of sprung that on you, but if anyone wishes to ask a question, you can either type it in the chat or put your hand up and we can find a way. Actually, maybe we're going to have to type it in the chat because I don't know how to unmute you. So if you have a question, please, or actually, I think Shelby just has come off mute. You probably are going to tell me that we do have the power.
Yes, so I was just going to say, if someone wants to put their hand up, I can absolutely press the button to allow them to talk.
Okay, awesome. So the gauntlet has been thrown, folks. If you have a question or a comment, you know, that you want to make around what we're talking about, think about that for a minute, and we'll go to the next question. Then we'll turn it back to all of you out there for anything that you want to add or say. So this is a fun one. What are you looking forward to getting back in your life once we have some ability to return to, I'm not going to call it normal, and we shouldn't return to the way things were for all the reasons that we're talking about. We're changed people. right? We're different now than we were 15 months ago before this whole thing started, and we need to hold on to all the good stuff. So what are you most looking forward to as restrictions ease, as we get more people vaccinated? We're at an outstanding 65% at last check here in Halton, which is great. And what lessons learned? So I think I'm coming to Jessica first. Go ahead.
Well, certainly, getting my roots done, getting my hair cut. I've never had hair this long since I was 25. So definitely need to get my hair cut. Looking forward to salons opening and doing that. And then certainly gathering with friends, those big informal, big groups of people together. Like that's what I'm missing, the laughter and the camaraderie at work too. I feel badly for all the young people that are just starting a job and they've been onboarded to that new job remotely. And we've had interns at our firm and sort of through co-op programs at university, they'll be with you for 4 months. And we've gone through several turns now where those interns have never even been into our office. And there's so much informal coaching that happens. Just, how do you conduct yourself? How do you, interact with the seniors and juniors and people, at your level? All that informal modeling of, is not happening. And so I'm in finance. I'm in a very, it's a real gender imbalance in finance, certainly. And so I do a lot of coaching and mentoring of young women in finance. And so looking forward to continuing that when this ends.
That's great. Julie, over to you.
Yeah, all the usual stuff for me, particularly summer camp. Luckily things have opened up and the kids are going to summer camp. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, are you going to send them? And I say, heck yeah, get out of my house. And I need schools to be open again. I need to well, Dania knows this. We're actually doing a major renovation at the house. And as soon as it started, the main floor renovation, like no kitchen, whatever, then, we went into lockdown. So kids weren't going to school and the university kids came home. So it's a bit of a gong show. And, I'm ordering in a lot, but I think I'm supporting local restaurants and doing that. So I have no concern or guilt about that. And yeah, the social stuff, like I love a pool. I love my backyard pool to be full of kids. I like to have the cousins over. I like to hug my mother. I like to do those things. And, I keep saying, check on your extroverted friends. We're not okay.
That's a very good point. I was thinking that for the introverts in my family, and most of that includes just about everybody, they're doing just fine, right? I mean, they're struggling in other ways, but it's going to be hard to go back to essentially an extroverted world. But I like that advice. Our extroverts are really suffering right now.
Well, and it's funny because I have a sister who's an introvert, and she was like, talking about my time to shine. She's like, I don't even have to make excuses not to see people.
Exactly. No Zoom connection is the new excuse. My broadband doesn't work, and we're working on that. All right, Dania, over to you.
I'm looking forward to being able to support those restaurants in person again, like patio time and that kind of thing. And of course the hair thing, and my wonderful, awesome hairdresser is with us today, and I love her so much. And I think I almost want to go get my hair done more just to chat and visit with her than I do even just to get my hair done. I'm embracing the whole color thing, loving it. But I do miss her dearly. See, she misses me too. And, but yeah, I totally miss that. I want to travel. I just want to go places again. I miss that. I haven't seen, well, my sister moved to Yellowknife 2 years ago, and I took the kids, not this past summer, obviously the summer before. And since COVID, she came home for a week. But the week she was here, we saw her one day, and then my daughter's class was all put into sent home to isolate because there had been an exposure, so we couldn't see her again, which when you hadn't seen someone in almost a year, that was just heartbreaking, right? So I'm looking forward to that, being able to travel, being able to see my family again, and just I think staying with, like you said, some of the changes, not going back to the craziness, and understanding that we need that balance, right?
That is a great segue to our last question, which is about work-life balance. But I'm going to pause there first and see if there are any questions from the floor. Just put your hand up or throw something in the chat.
I don't think there's any questions at
All
this
right,
time.
we don't yet. So, oh, here's one. How do you go about assigning chores to your kids? How do you do it in between online school? I can barely get my 2 kids to brush their teeth. Yeah. So who wants to start with that? Okay,
Julie, she's got the most kids.
jump right in.
You know what? I think this really is about that work-life balance thing and trying to manage all the balls in the air, and we're dropping them and then we're picking them up, and we've just got to give ourselves a little bit grace here. I'll tell you what I've done, and this has been very helpful. I have lowered my standards. They're so low, I'm tripping over them. They are so low, and I'm okay with it. I mean, really, it's not our optimal time, like we've been talking about. So if the kids get Kraft dinner twice a week for dinner, so be it. That's okay. If I have a late meeting and they're on their screens too much, like, that's all right. I'm not beating myself up about it. You guys all know, I always say I gave up mom guilt 4 kids ago. It's not useful. It's not proactive. It's not helpful. And this is not going to be forever. So cut yourself some slack, lower those standards. Again, know your capacity, own it, share it. And I've been using a lot of like productivity tips, like the touch it once principle. I'm chunking time when I do work. With the kids, I do a group huddle in the morning so that we actually know what everybody has on. So say I have to go on Zoom for like a media thing or Skype, and say it's from 12 to 1, then I need to say to all the kids, y'all, I need all the Wi-Fi, so get off your things. So, because I can't crap out at this time. So everybody's got to know what everyone's priorities are for the day. It's basically like a group huddle you would do with your employees. Yeah, or like Lisa says, a group text. We also have the Fam Jam text, so that information gets to everyone. Also, if you need to, like, I know everybody was feeling, all the moms are feeling like we're like our kids snack bitches, like all they want is snacks. So like, give me a snack. So I think, set up your house so that they can help themselves, put things on the lower shelves, have the water cups there. Or, what you can do is just close the kitchen, pretend they're at school, pack a lunch and say, here you go. That's what you get for the day. That's it. That's all. And if they want to have their entire lunch by 10 a.m., the natural consequences, that's all they got. That's their choices. So, don't feel like you have to be at their beck and call. And, I feel like something that I saw a lot of parents doing, and I was doing a little bit myself as well, and I stopped, was I'm letting my kids sit in their discomfort a bit. So like, I think generally we see them struggling online or maybe with their academics, and we tend to dive in and help them and save them. I find that if I just kind of like resist that urge, sometimes it might take them a little bit longer, but they'll find their way. And that's good for me because then I can get my stuff done too. So it's okay for them to struggle a bit and sit in their discomfort. And it's okay to just kind of back off and let that happen. And because we have a lot of stuff to get done too. And one other little thing that I found helpful, now my kids are a little bit older, so depending on your kids, if your kids are like 6 though, they're going to get this. Like on my office store, I have a color system. So green means come on in, you're welcome to join. Yellow means come in, but maybe I'm on a call. Just red means the house better be on fire or your brother's drinking bleach under the sink. Red is like a no-go zone. So again, it's about managing expectations, creating, managing expectations and creating systems and being productive and everybody honoring each other's space and priorities.
The answer I give to people when they say, how do you manage it all? Well, it's 2 answers. First of all, I don't. And second, you haven't seen the state of my house. Except this little like 4 feet window right here looks awesome. I got the flowers, I got the books all lined up. I had to work at that. That part is tiny. You don't want to see the rest of it. Jessica, over to you.
Yeah, I when my kids were little, they had jobs and I had jobs. I remember my mom's on the watching today, and I had the job of emptying the dishwasher or loading the dishwasher, and I had to organize with my brother, you know, who was doing what. So that was one of the first jobs that I had with my kids. It was the bottom drawer of the dishwasher was loading and unloading. And so every week, you know, since my kids were really little, it's been, they have, you know, I'm a working mom. And so I used to say to them, you're not my boss. When they would say, I need this and I want this, and I'd be like, you're not my boss. And we were a team. Let's get this done as a team. So who wants to sign up? I often will create a list of jobs. Who wants to sign up for these jobs? Vacuum, dust, dishes, water the plants, you know, whatever it is. And people sign up. My husband signs up. I sign up. So we're all in it together, and we're all going to have a family work day or family work morning. We'll do that on a Saturday. But I think, you know, the morning huddle is something I should probably do. But I do use the family chat. You know, we have the family chat where I say, I'm on the call, everybody quiet, or somebody get the dog. There's the UPS guy, the Amazon package is arriving. So we definitely do that. And then the other thing I created in our house in the kitchen is a big whiteboard. And I actually just got a piece of glass from a glass place in Burlington, and I bought these mounting things that I could mount it on the wall. So it's this huge glass board, and it looks nice when it's clean, but most of the time it's covered in writing. It's got and you just write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the full schedule for the whole week, what's for dinner every single day. The grocery list is on there. And so it's just it's the board. It is the central hub that everybody can go to. Everybody can write on, we need whipped cream or whatever it is on the board. And if it's not on the board, it's not happening. So if you forgot to do something, you need to drive to something and you didn't put it on the board, you know, that's your problem. How are we going to figure this out? So I think, yeah, that the little things like that when they were young, we started all of those things, and now they're older. And so I think they show a lot of responsibility. They're excellent cooks. They make dinner now for me. So I'll be in here and it's 6 o'clock and I'm still working, and they know what we're having for dinner and they've already started it. So I think you do have to start young, and it can pay you dividends when they get older.
That's awesome. Love the whiteboard. I put my groceries on there and the meals for the week on the whiteboard in our kitchen, and then I cross off when the food's gone. It helps me keep, you know, not letting things expire in my fridge too.
You know, I do the meal plan too. I've got like a 4-week revolving meal plan because I just don't want to hear the words "What's for dinner" 6 times every single day.
Exactly. I used to get the Hello Fresh and all the meals delivered, but they have a similar rotating, and it's like, yeah, I don't feel like the same meals again. But one thing that I will not ever let go of after COVID is grocery delivery. So I was laughing when Dania, when you were talking about your daughter being in the kitchen next door, I was off mute because the dog was barking, the grocery delivery was here, and it was being unpacked and put in the fridge. None of which you heard, because I was like, just keep talking. I can't unmute right now. It'll be a total gong show. All right, Dania, last word is to you in our final couple of minutes here. Go ahead.
I've lowered my standards. I agree with Julie completely. I'm nowhere near that organized. I'm much more of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. The busier I am, the more I accomplish, and that can be in chaos too. That's all fine with me. In terms of chores, I mean, my kids are pretty good. They're older now. They make their own meals. I do get a lot from my daughter though. She'll be busy watching a TV show and expect me to go make her something to eat because she's hungry. And, you know, the answer is, I think you're capable of going to get that yourself. And if you're not, then I guess you're really not that hungry. So that's usually my answer. But yeah, in terms of that work-life balance, I've always been pretty good at that. I've got some really good habits that way that I've had going on for a long time. When I started this, I took a Yale course on the science of well-being, and basically it was all about the things that make you happy as opposed to the things we think make us happy. And I can honestly tell you, I think that's one of the things that has kept me so grounded. And I don't get, if stuff doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. Like, I'm not worried about it. I have papers to write, I have work to do, my kids have school stuff to do. Whatever. I'd rather go for a 6-kilometer walk with them and come back and get the dishes done before bed than worry about fixing it up and leaving it perfect. Like, there's just more to worry about. There's more value in life than, you know, stressing out about who's going to vacuum and who's going to dust. And I don't care if it's dusty, whatever. I'm not going to worry about it, right?
That's very chill and good, very good advice. One of the things that is a takeaway for me is, and I know this is true of all of us on the panel and out there, is not taking things for granted. Right? Things that you did before. And one of the things that has emerged with my kids is talking more often, ironically, even when they're further afield, because we've all figured out Zoom, right? And people, my family as well, in the US, we would talk to each other maybe once or twice a year. We talk once a month because everyone has figured out the technology. Because before it was, is it a FaceTime? Is everyone on Skype? Is, you know, how much long distance? You know, it was just a nightmare to try and navigate. So you get busy and, you know, 8 months go by. And so I'm talking to my kids more all together as a family huddle on Zoom, right? Which is really interesting. And when they're not living in the same city or the same house, we will be doing more of that post pandemic. So very happy to have learned that technology. So we are exactly out of time here, and I want to thank our panelists for joining us. Dania Thurman, Julie Cole, Jessica Clark Barrow. Thank you so much for being here and sharing so openly about your personal situation. Thank you so much for just your humility and your call to kindness and a realistic approach to life and parenting. These are words of healing that we all need to hear. So thank you for that. I do want to put in a plug for our next inspiring, amazing, awesome Women of Burlington series. It is about our inspiring Indigenous women in our community. And we have been planning that for weeks and weeks, but what a day to be announcing that today, that we're doing that. We believe that the date is June 28th, so put a circle in your calendar for that event. It's going to be an amazing event, just as they all are, and this is. So again, a huge thank you to all of you for joining, for your questions, for your interest, and thanks to my fellow panelists. And we are signing off for today. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.